first keynote speaker, you already, well, seen him walking around throwing the catch box. With a background as a philosopher and a professional speaker and a trend watcher, Ruud Veltenaar will be speaking about future trends and the development of skills, vets and labor markets, and how to prepare for jobs that do not yet exist. And please be prepared, because he's really about to give us a wake-up call, as he calls it. So a warm applause for our first keynote speaker, Ruud Veltenaar.
Thank you very much for this warm and personal welcome. Good afternoon, everybody. Also a very warm welcome to you in Amsterdam. And to the people in the back, can you please switch to my computer? That would be very kind. Maybe it works, or HDCP failed. The problem in the Netherlands is that we try to organize everything. And before you know, your organization is around for more than 100 years, and then it seems very difficult to swap between two computers. It would be great if you can swap between two computers. Everything is connected here. Well, let me continue anyway, and then you try to fix it, okay? My name is Ruud Veltenaar, as said. I'm a philosopher, TED speaker. I'm a professor at the International Schools of Business Management Institute in London, which is an academy that facilitates programs for business schools and universities around the world. And I'm also a visiting professor at MIT in Boston and Nyenrode here in the Netherlands. That's my background. That is not what I did all my life. I had a business leader background. I managed companies on all continents and was also an impact investor for 11 years for 3 family offices in Europe. So that's the background and also the reference where I take you on an expedition to the emerging future. My story of this afternoon is about a world in transformation to the next phase in our society, where the focus will shift from a focus on welfare to well-being. It's different. It's a focus a shift from focus from thinking in finding jobs and do work all your life, in thinking, how can I use my potential, how can I find my potential, and be in a sort of peak performance in creating socially, ecologically, and or financially value for the participating society. It's different. It's not any longer a focus on only finding a job and get the skills to do a job. And why is this shift of focus so important? We just heard that in our country, 70 to 80% of youngsters who got a vet education find a job almost instantly. But what you didn't hear is that more than 50% of working people in general do a job where they're not very good at and they don't love. So you can say they have a job, but what is life if you do a job 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that is not related to your passion and focus, and the only reason why you do it is for a paycheck? It's part of the neoliberal world where everything is centered on find a job, do work, and die unhappily. I'm not sure if that's the right focus. It's a shift of focus, this transformation to the next phase in our society, from the I, the silos, the neoliberal world, to a different world. How can we co-create together a better world? And doing a job, work, should be a part of creating a better world instead of making money only. So we transform to a different world. You could say for the men among us that it is also a transformation from ego to eco, which is different. And listen to the women who are laughing and the gentlemen who are looking like this. Last week a woman raised her hand and said, "Why is this only counting for men?" And she was a bit upset, and I said, "It certainly counts for you, ma'am." Right. We still have no no any slides, but I can continue without. This transformation to the next phase in our society has true drivers. And this transformation to the next phase in our society, also transforming work and jobs and finding it, is unavoidable, and it doesn't have a U-turn. So everybody here in this audience, and also who is not present, has no choice to be part of this transformation. We have a choice with what kind of mindset we part of this transformation. You can have a proactive mindset of a leader who wants to be the creator of his own circumstances, finding an answer to the why. Why do I need a job? Not to make money only, but to be of value for others. And understanding that if you have an answer to the why, it's like a green traffic light. It always shows you to go on the right path, which is part of the why, instead of only the what and the how. So we must understand that there is no choice, but that you have a choice in mindset to be proactive and create the world we're all longing for. Or the choice you have is that you have more a reactive mindset, and then you join also the transformation, but more as a victim of your circumstances instead of the creator. So that is the main line of the story of this afternoon. And it will have two drivers. And I will, for this audience, in part one, I will explain driver one, which will also have impact on work. And during a workshop after this session, I will also explain driver two. But driver one, that is changing the world with huge impact on work, job creation, and so on, consists of three elements. The first element is exponential technologies, and all the Trendwatchers and singularity ambassadors in this world are preaching technology and technology change. As a philosopher, I find it interesting, but not the goal of everything. It becomes very relevant and important if we understand and see that exponential technologies lead to social innovation, and that social innovation leads to the democratization of products, services, maybe ownership, and even democracy itself. So this first driver is extremely important, and I will get a little bit more in depth later on. The second one, which I will deal with in the workshop after this session, is about crisis, which will have huge impact on work and everything we do and long for. Crisis, an ecological crisis, an uncontrollable climate change, a social economical crisis, that we have to finance a sustainable environment and economy, and that's going to cost us a lot of money, bringing us a social economical crisis and a spiritual crisis. And do we understand that if we talk about work and jobs and a focus on work, and keep in mind that 70%, close to 70% of all people around the world do jobs that they're not very good at and they don't really love. That brings us a world today that 1/3 of people with a burnout is younger than 30. So that's part of a spiritual crisis. So is that what we should copy to the future for the youngsters we love? I don't think so. I don't think so. So the big question is, how can we get into a position using my potential, reflecting it, developing it, and focusing it on creating value? How can we get into a situation that we don't have to balance our professional lives with our personal life, but that we start balancing our potential with creating value for others? Because creating a better world, nowadays called work, is not something you do between Monday and Friday and from 8 to 5. Creating a better world is a mindset. You stand up with it, you go to bed with it, you have no choice. So how can we give youngsters the meaning of life, connecting to the emerging future and their potential with an answer to the why, that they start leading a life in creating a better world, and we still may call it doing your job, but not only between Monday and Friday. It's all about mindset. Is that what we are teaching youngsters at school, at elementary school until universities. No, we're not. We're not. We're doing the same things for the past 50, 60, 70, 100 years. So how would it be if Simon Sinek, the professor who invented the golden circle, the why, the what, and the how great would it be if his dream, his utopia, becomes reality? Because what he said was, imagine a world in which the vast majority of people wake up every single day inspired to go to work, feel safe while they're there, and return home at the end of the day fulfilled by the work that they do. By other saying, how can we find our potential and work 8, 9, 10 hours a day and return home happily, and at 10 o'clock in the evening you get unhappy because it takes another 10 hours before you can do the same? How great would it be if we are in that world? And we can only create that world and that mindset if we're not only focused on finding a job and telling youngsters, you know what you should do? You should study beta studies, because there is a lot of work in the near future in technology. But what if you don't like technology? What if you're not very good in technology and you start studying it, excuse me, because your father said so? Doing well, sir. Normally this is only in a cartoon, but today we give you a live show how cartoons are created. All right. Do we? Yes, we start. Okay. Be careful. I don't want to get too close to it. All right. Let me explain to you how difficult it is to predict the future and how to anticipate on it. Particularly when you are a youngster, in a world that is changing radically and rapidly. And then when you listen to Trendwatchers, singularity ambassadors, people like that, they always talk about a huge paradigm shift, and they always talk about technology that is changing the world. I will skip the movie and go straight to something else. We Dutch are also good in improvising. 4 weeks ago, I was at a conference for 1,600 teachers from elementary school. And the first speaker of the day was a Trendwatcher. And he was talking to the 1,000+ teachers about technology, the world, and things kids should learn. And he was talking about technology, about autonomous cars, about drones shooting at people without any interference by people. He was talking about artificial intelligence. And he was talking about sex with robots. And he got really excited when he talked about it. And looking the way he was looking exhausted, I think he had at least 3 at home. And then suddenly he said to the 1,000+ teachers among the audience, he said, do you know, and he was using his finger like all Dutchmen, do you know that in the near future there will be robots in front of the classroom? And you should have a look at all those faces. You know, my God, what about my pension? What about my mortgage? What about my kids who are going to university? No question about what about the students. It was all about I. It's all about I. And he had good examples to make his story trustfully. So after, when he was done and I took stage, you saw the audience longing for relief. And now we have a philosopher who is not a technology fetish. And he will tell, hopefully, you saw that on the faces, he will tell us, hopefully, that there will not be robots in front of classrooms in 2030. So I said, after 1 minute, there will be no robots in front of a classroom in 2030. Well, it was immediately like this. 1,500 friends in 1 minute. Can you do that job, huh? Where do you learn that? And I said the reason why there are no robots in front of a classroom in 2030 is because there are no longer any classrooms. So if the world is getting upside down, you have to turn with it, otherwise you think that there are teachers in front of a classroom in 2030. Interesting, huh? So, and that all without slides and photos, that's fine. So what is important is that you have the ability to listen to stories like this, that you have the ability to swap 180 degrees, and if the world turned upside down and you swap 180 degrees, you see the world in a proper way. Because if you stay with your limited beliefs and your hang to illusionary certainties, and you stay like this, you see the world upside down, you will get to the wrong conclusions and the wrong decisions. So swapping, looking at the world upside down, is difficult for people. If it was working, I should show you now a picture of a pig. So imagine a pig. Then I would ask you, if you were seeing here a pig, what is the word that comes up to your mind instantly? And then people say pig, or they say spare ribs, barbecue. They say animal welfare. Toxicking the earth, forbidden animal. You can think of everything when you look at a pig. But when you shift 180 degrees looking at a pig, you see an animal that has similar DNA to people for 99%. A pig is similar to us, 99% in DNA. It is nowadays true that if we take a piece of the heart of a pig, mutate it with our stem cells and transplant it to our body, you don't have to take medicine that it is rejected, because our body will see that part of the heart as our own body. 2018. It's life-saving, man. It's life-saving. 40 medicine, insulin, pepsin, is coming from pigs. It's a walking pharmacist on legs. So if you can listen to my story in that way, then it might reflect a little bit better, and it might be usable a little bit better. But it is difficult to turn upside down. I will give you an example for people. When we talk about finding a job, looking at companies, and being humble and all on your own, hopefully that somebody say yes to you. Well, depends on who say yes to you. Do we teach our children at home, at the breakfast table, or at the university, or at the vet institute? Do we teach them how to look at companies and make the right choice? The answer is no. I'll give you an example. Just before summer, I was invited to talk on a conference of the European Central Bank in Frankfurt. Thank you, sir. A miracle. Oh. I'm so happy that you laugh about it. It's all part of the presentation, so it was... Sorry? Now just forget it. Leave it. We don't use it. Leave it.
You have to do it upside down.
Sorry, sir?
You have to do it upside down.
I have to do it upside down. But then we go all together, like, okay? I would like to see 1,000 people sitting upside down. That would be great. Okay. When I was in Frankfurt, invited by the European Central Bank, in the audience, among the audience, 1,000 institutional investors from all over the world. Together, I think more than $100 billion represented in investing. Banks, insurance companies, mortgages in companies, a lot of them. And I asked them, do you think that the content of a bottle of Coca Cola is healthy? Please stand up. Nobody stand up, because we all know that it is not very healthy. So I asked them differently. I asked them, will you stay seated if you think that Coca Cola, the drink Coca Cola, the soda Coca Cola, destroys social value? Obesitas, sugar illnesses, things like that. And if you think that is not the case, stand up, but please remain seated if you think that Coca Cola destroys social value. Everybody remained seated. Makes sense. Then I asked them, because they're all investors, it's a secure share, without risk, high returns, who invests in Coca Cola? And you also people say, so, and then on first row, a gentleman was getting very upset and behaving like this. So I walked to him and said, sorry, do you feel well? Yes, I do feel well. I said, but why are you so upset? I said, I'm so upset because I work for Coca Cola. And I have to give a keynote speech after you. I said, I know. So I'm very happy that you're here. So let's put some additional arms on the table. So I asked the audience, do you know how many plastic bottles Coca Cola creates? 3,000 per second. 3,000 plastic bottles per second. Destroying our planet, toxinating our oceans. Bojan Slat just went to California with his ship and his equipment to solve the problem. So I said to the people, I said, I believe that the world is better off if Coca-Cola does not exist. And I really mean it. So should we learn, our youngsters, to find a job at Coca-Cola and destroy social and ecological value just because to have a job and do the wrong thing? I don't think so. So you have to switch 180 degrees to understand what we're heading to. Because if we don't change things like this, the world remains the same and we're in a dead alley together. So this transformation to the next phase in our society is driven in general by what they call, Jori van Geest, 6 Ds. The first one we all know very well, digitalization, fantastic. Then we think it speeds up very quickly, that's the deception. The second D, deception, it takes more time before it gets a mass. And then when it gets a serious size and becomes relevant, then we find disruption. Well, that's the third D. We're all in it, disruption. But there are 3 more who are more important. The fourth D is the dematerialization of products. We put in one phone a navigation system, a music player, you can look at Netflix, you can take a photo to see if a spot in your neck has cancer or not. So in one device, we see many functions, and that is dematerialization. And then when it becomes cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, all those elements in one device, but still become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, then you talk about demonetization. Things getting less value. And that leads exponential technologies growing like hell, exponential, dropping cost by 50% every year, exponential decline of cost. That creates the 6th D, which is the most important one of the 6, which is democratization. Because fantastic technologies, exponential technologies like artificial intelligence and others, and I give you examples, gets into the hands of youngsters who can create a better world, not even by competing the huge industry, but just by ignoring them. And then it becomes very interesting. I give you some examples. The democratization of energy, if we look at the most recent solar panels from Solar City, the plans from Tesla, when we organize ourselves as people, as society, and we put in a corporation, 10,000 people, we can create our own electricity at a price at 2.6 cents per kilowatt. While the Nuon coal plant here in Amsterdam can produce electricity at a price 4.6 cents per kilowatt, and in the Netherlands we pay 22 cents per kilowatt, while we can produce it ourselves by 2.6 cents per kilowatt. And that is what's happening in Europe, but also in our country, on more than 1,000 locations where people say we don't need the government any longer, we don't need the industry any longer, we start doing it ourselves. So, for example, in Utrecht, the region of Lombok, more than 10,000 civilians got into an entity called a foundation. They put enough money in it to buy the solar panels on their houses and the churches, and now they create 6 months a year more electricity than they can use at that same time. So they store it in their mutual batteries. When they are full, they store the rest of this electricity in the electric cars that are also connected to this grid. And when the cars are full, they sell the energy at the price they decide to people they choose. So we, society, in this example, becomes more on distance and more independent from governments and the big industry who are not behaving very democratic. Because if we look in our country, it seems that government is more interested in the big industries than in society. And the free market is not really interested in democracy, it's more interested in making more money, getting a bigger market share. And we, passive consumers, with using this kind of technologies, become more and more a partner in co-creation and a power. So governments and industries must be aware that we as a society become a serious partner for them. And that is what we should learn, youngsters, the day when they organize themselves using technologies can create a better world. Together with governments and the free market, instead of only following it as consumers. I'll give you another example, which is also a very good example of where students work with markets and create something that does not exist and that creates a better world. At the University of Eindhoven, and we at MIT in Boston are extremely jealous on the campus of Eindhoven. I think it's unique in the world, to be honest. And the last couple of years, a group of students who were world champion for 5 years in solar cars, driving from Western Australia to Eastern Australia on the sun without staggering, 60 miles an hour without staggering from west to east, 5 times world champion. This year they lost from Delft, also a university in our country, who became world champion. But Eindhoven became champion in a new category, 5 people in a family car from West Australia to East Australia, driving on the sun. And they are now commercializing. And the project, the company is called Lightyear, solar cars, Lightyear. Go, when you are in your hotel room tonight, go to lightyear.com. Because they're now building a plant in the Netherlands and delivering the Lightyear 1 somewhere around 2022. And you know, when you are at the website and you enter, I live in Abu Dhabi, for example, and I drive 10,000 miles a year, the system will calculate how many times you have to charge your car. In Abu Dhabi, 10,000 miles with a lot of sun once a year. Proven technology. Students working together with the technology sector. When you live in Barcelona, less sun, still once a year charging to drive 10,000 miles. When you live in Amsterdam, lots of sun lately. It's not about climate change because that's of all times. Greenland is called Greenland not for nothing. In Amsterdam, 10,000 miles, charging 16 times, 1/6 a year. Rotterdam, The Hague, any country in Europe, not southern because then it is less, 30,000 miles, charging it less than once a week. So this is fantastic technology, created by Dutch students, together in co-creation with industry in in Eindhoven. But the best innovation they came with is not this technology, it's the social innovation. And they were not taught this at the university, that's what they came up with because they had the mindset connected to the emerging future, to the 21st century. So what did they do also? The Lightyear 1 will be delivered in 2022. The Lightyear 2 will be delivered in 2024. It will look like a Tesla 3, only you don't have to charge it, or not as often. And nobody can buy this car. This car will only be delivered to a social mobility platform without the focus on making money. And then when it makes money, and everybody puts it in their own pockets, then they get back the cars. But if that's not the case with a social mobility platform, they demand from the platform that the cost for mobility will drop or that the profit is paid as dividend on the customers based on mileage. So these are youngsters, not only with a huge talent to create fantastic technology, but they use also the technology to create a better world and find balance between governments, free markets, and a society. Is that interesting? It is truly creating a better world by youngsters, by giving us the example. So let's translate it to the educational world, which is, let's say, the start of a career, the start of a the start of a meaningful life, which is different. At MIT, we use blockchain technology not only to store if your bachelor, your master, and or PhD is true, is authentic, but we start using technology, blockchain technology, and we'll use it more and more in the near future, to store everything you learn, everything you read, everything you see on TED Talks and so on, everything you create on your own or together with others, so that you will build a profile, a personal profile, by the things you are good at, the things that create passion, and when it is built over years and years and years, after 2030, it can be used by you to find a project or an employer that meets your needs instead of using your PhD, and to find an employer who say yes to you, 180 degrees upside down. We expect at MIT that from 2040, you don't need to graduate. No bachelor's, no master, no PhD, just a digital profile tells the story. That's interesting, eh? That is really interesting. You know what? What is even more interesting, we decided last year that all our knowledge, all our information, all our lectures will be accessible starting from 2020 for everybody all around the world. And the price of our lectures will drop from $60,000 a year, excluding campus cost, to zero. The democratization of academic education for 8 billion people, in the near future for 10 billion people. Using technology, different mindsets, social innovation, leading to the democratization of education. If you want to know how we finance it, be my guest. It's not a business model, it's a financial arrangement. Ask me during coffee and I will explain to you how we finance it. Mind you, for the period 2020-2030, we have 10 times the money allocated than we need. So it's working. It's working. But I see people think that we talk about intellect and skills and jobs. I see people think, what if you don't have the power to learn? If you don't have the IQ to process data, information, to see how they are related, to recognize patterns. I'm not talking about emotional intelligence, I'm not talking about social intelligence, I'm talking about IQ. And for 80–90% of the world population, you might say of academic education is too tough because we lack the IQ. That will change too. That will change in the next decade. We believe at MIT, and we have more than 2,000 scientists working on artificial intelligence together with NASA. We are one of the small epic centers in the world working on artificial intelligence. And we believe, if I ask the senior scientists at MIT, how far will we be with artificial intelligence in the next decade, they will say in 2024 you can buy a chip in a smartphone, computer or tablet, and bringing you for $200, 100 IQ points, the intelligence of one human being. Not in your neck. Stanford is doing tests with a third cortex in your neck, but that is still very expensive and far away. But 2020, a small chip in a device brings you the processing power of one human being if we talk about processing information. Look at the faces. Or in 2040, for $200, sir, for our grandchildren, the intelligence of 100,000 people at least. Look now at the faces. We can't imagine. We can't think of this change. It goes beyond our imagination. I will show you what the impact will be. But first, to get some relaxation and to open your mind for this kind of change. For my grandchildren in 2040, it will be air. It's a commodity. They can't imagine that artificial intelligence is so absent today as it is. If you say in 2040 to your grandchildren, Granddad got his MBA without artificial intelligence, it will have eyes like this and says to you, that's impossible. That's impossible. And you say, well, really, without artificial intelligence, those were the days. You had to do it all by yourself, not using all kind of rubbish. And then the head goes like this and say, that's unhuman to study without artificial intelligence. That's not doable. And then the head goes like, so you said you master without artificial intelligence? You say, yes. Well, what was the level of it? It would say, sir, if I'm short-sighted and I can't see you properly and I wear glasses, do you think that it is weird? No, it's not weird. Is your glasses, is it created by nature? No. Are your glasses created by God? No. We created it and we use it because it gives us the ability to see properly, right? When you have a hearing problem, you use a hearing aid, not created by God, not created by nature, by us. So when you can't study properly and you use a third cortex in 2040 in your neck, what is wrong with it? Well, that is wrong. Why? Because I don't know how it works and then we shouldn't use it. Sir, do you know how your car works? No, we don't. Do you know how your iPhone works? No, we don't, but we use it. My generation will say, I might consider it, put it in my neck, but I want to have two options. One option is on and off, that we can switch it on and off, for the illusion of control, right? And the other option my generation would like to see is that we have a choice of integrating it in our authentic brain or not, right? For my children, it doesn't make sense, switch on or off. It's always on. And it is definitely integrated. Because if you say, no, it's not integrated, then it would say, why do you want to know at least 1,000 times a day that your authentic brain is far more stupid than your artificial brain? Why do you want to know? So when your grandchild is running into your room in 2040 and says, Granddad, can I ask you a question? You said, sure, son. Fire away. And the first thing it will ask you is it switched on or not? It's not about this technology, and it's a pity that we don't have the slides with me, because then I could show you some impact it will have, because it's not about this technology. I was talking to a lawyer firm 3 weeks ago about artificial intelligence. And of course it will have impact on the world. When IQ democratized, it will have impact on the world. Because we can't compete any longer on IQ. We start competing on SQ and EQ, which hopefully creates a better world. So I was talking to AKD lawyers in Rotterdam, one of the finest law firms in our country. 400 lawyers and managing partners. And one managing partner raised his hand and he said, Ruud, if you're right, if it's true what you are saying, we all become the same. I said, no, it's not a dump of data, it's not a dump of information, it's not a dump of skills, it's the power to learn, so we won't become the same. Might we get all the same character? No, character is something totally different. I know people with an IQ of 160, I wouldn't want to have 1% of the character, so that is truly something different. Do we all get the same identity? No. Your social identity is based on what you mean to people, not how intelligent you are, right? So we don't become the same. And then he said, but by the way, if that's true, everybody wants to become a lawyer and nobody wants to become a garbageman. Well, that is a limited belief, I said. So I said, I take you with me on a journey to 2003. When the garbage men in New York City went on strike. And what did the mayor say on the first day? I'm unbreakable. I don't like to be blackmailed by garbage men in New York. 2 days after, 2 meters of garbage on Madison Avenue. 3 days later, 4 meters of garbage at Park Avenue. 5th day, rats going into Trump Tower. I know, nowadays they came out of Trump Tower, I know. The 6th day, the army went into the city. The 7th day, still problems. 8th day, the mayor broke. So nowadays, a garbage man in New York, 5 years in service, makes $85,000 a year. When you are starting an aspirant garbageman, first year, $35,000. Why? Because the city of New York, 16 million people found out how much ecological and social value garbage men create every day. And they are paid by it. They're not paid by it on intelligence and how long they were at the university. They are paid based on the value they create for society. So I asked this lawyer, this managing partner, who creates more value for the world? You, as a managing partner, costing $800 an hour, or a garbage man? And then he was puzzled. He was puzzled. And he said, yes, but with this ability to become, from a perspective of IQ, very intelligent, still nobody wants to become a garbage man, even if you make a lot of money, because you want to use your intelligence. I give you an example from my own area. I have a friend in New York who is a garbage man for 7 years. And he does a great job and makes serious money. Not enough to stay on Manhattan, but still okay. But he also has an MBA from Harvard. But he made a choice to create a better world because it gives him a feeling of leading a meaningful life. And at the same time, using his intelligence, his powers, his skills, and his time, he has 160 million followers when he declares to the world his vision on social entrepreneurship. So being a garbage man and being intelligent gives you the power to do a lot of things with the right mindset. It's interesting, the world that's coming to us. It's interesting. So when I talk to a doctor and a nurse who nurse people at home so that they can stay for another 15 years at home instead of going to an elderly home, who creates more social value? A doctor or a nurse who is specialized in treating people at home? Who creates more social value? Who avoid more economical damage? You as a doctor or the nurses? And who should make more money? Who should be more awarded in attention? So that will change. So my question to all the vet industries and educational institutes, is our focus still on only getting skills, or should we give them a mindset to use your potential to create a better world? I think the answer is pretty simple. Then in the presentation, and if you want to download the presentation, which you haven't seen, so that might be interesting. It's 1 terabyte of information. We have a lot of videos. We have a lot of text. You will get an email from the organization. In the email, you will find a link and a password. Click the link, you get to my website. Then 1 terabyte of information can be downloaded. Enter the password plus 3 more fields. If you say it was a great day, although technology was not working, then the download speed will be extremely high. You can use it in your work, you can use it at home at the breakfast table. Don't mention the sources, because I think that is very old-fashioned. Use it as if it was your own. Let me see. And then you will see examples of all kinds of technologies that are taken over work, which I think is not a problem, it's a solution for a problem. But you have to switch 180 degrees to understand why that's the case. And the interesting thing is that in the presentation you will also see a video of a youngster, I think he's in his mid-30s, and he's flying to Africa with 3D printers and nanotechnology. And he has an education at MBO level, average level, MBO, civil engineering. And just one guy with technology flies to Africa, start printing a prothese on 3D printers 14 times for youngsters who miss an arm because of the war or a leg. He print prostheses, artificial leg and arms. And then after helping 14 people as a former average student, MBO level, he left all his technology behind and his knowledge, teaching them how to do it themselves so that they can create on a faster speed, a better world. So not keeping it exclusively to himself to make more money, but help 14 people at that location, teach them how to use the technology to do it themselves, and create a better world. I think that is a fantastic example of leadership. Focus on the why, doing the right thing, and managers doing it in a right way, what and how oriented. So it's interesting. Pity that we can't see the video showing that's how he does his work and leaving the technology behind. Of course, there is also a side that is not very often presented when we relate it to technology, and that is technology has no ethics. Has no ethics. And when we give control of the mission control of humanity to Silicon Valley, with a moral of when it is technically possible and you can create a lot of money with it, then we dump it on the market without thinking of the ethical parts of technology. We create monsters like Google and Amazon and more of them, Uber, Airbnb, they're monsters. Interesting technology, connected to the 21st centuries, with business models from the 20th century. So we should teach, learn, let experience youngsters at our breakfast tables at home, but also at our schools, learning centers in the near future. That working for a company with a mindset, with the business mantra, business using people as a resource to make more money, that is not the most appealing and interesting area to work. You should find a company, big or small, with the mantra, people using business and technology and money as a force for good, which is still making money as a result of doing good. Doing well, making money, is the result of doing good. It's not people, planet, profit. It is people, planet, profound purpose, resulting in profit. It's 4 Ps. So I believe that learning, let them feel, let them experience, that it is about value creation with 4 Ps, and that you don't have to be Elon Musk or Bojan Slat to create a better world, that we just let them go. Let them go, because loving our children means letting them go. Loving our employees is let them go and make their own decisions. So what do they need to become, our youngsters? Gandhi said it many years ago, just the change you would like to see in the world. We let them become the change they would like to see in the world, we might create a better world. Summarization. What are stories like climate control or not controlling climate, third cortex in your neck, autonomous cars, robots operating people much better, efficient, cheaper than people? What does it create with people? A lot of things, but above it all, fear, the word fear. Close your eyes, think of the word fear. Most people read in fear, fuck everything and run. But that's not what we should do. A lot of people act to fear as false evidence appearing real. They stick to illusionary certainties, to their image, to their status, which is all, of course, an illusion. It exists, but it is not a certainty. So what we should learn youngsters to read in the word fear is look at reality, facing evidence, and rise. Become co-creators of the world instead of passive consumers. Much more important skill than any other skill. So that from facing evidence and rise, we can co-create the last meaning of fear, feeling excited and ready. Summarization, 10 words, 2 letters. If it is to be, it is up to me. And me, and me, and me. And we. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's nice that you started, Ruud, with talking about, it's all about the mindset, from victim to creator. So I really hope that all of you here have the right mindset now and use it also as a way to multiply for the youth. And Ruud, to you personally, I think one of your skills is storytelling without any image, using words to create such beautiful visuals for us. That's really beautiful to see.